So, Erica, very excited to have you on. We could start off. I'll let you give some background on you, and I'm excited to dive into some questions around AI and how we can use it at work in education and associations.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for having me, Kyle. I'll share a little bit about my background. I actually started my career in higher education working in Tulane University's undergraduate admission office, where not only was I a recruiter, but I also worked heavily on our website and managed all of our e-communication. So all of our email, anything site related, any electronic follow-up with students and things of that nature. And it was around the time that many of the MarTech companies that we know so well as household names, so like HubSpot and Salesforce and MailChimp, were all kind of coming on the scene. And I was very captivated with how those tools allowed me to do my job so much more efficiently and effectively. So after I graduated with my MBA from Tulane, I went on to run operations at the largest digital marketing company in the Gulf South. And at the time, we had about 1,200 different clients. So we had to be very, very disciplined about how we constructed our packages for those organizations, because in order to perform for all of them and help them stand out amongst the chaos of the online marketplace, we had to make sure that what we included in the packages were things that we could create a ton of process around and do really effectively. And so there were things we always had to leave out, like email campaigns and graphic design work, and video came at, a much higher premium, all those things. And so when I was tapped on the shoulder by Amit Nagarajan about 8 years ago to come help grow an AI email company, that was really exciting because I saw the opportunity as a marketer for AI to essentially, build out our packages, help us build out our packages in a much more comprehensive way. And all of those things that, we considered specialized or like specialty add-ons were things that AI would eventually enable us to make standard, or at least I saw that for the world of marketing. So that's what brought me to Rasa.io, where for the 3 years I was the COO of the organization and grew the organization to several hundred customers. And now I've followed my passion for AI education at another Blue Cypress organization, Sidecar, where we educate the association community on AI.
Yeah, thanks, Erica. Salm Rench, folks, doing AI before it was cool. And I think that's a major theme. Kind of have become this AI evangelist. And I think the journey there definitely wasn't typical, starting in the university enrollment side of things and building communities and running digital marketing for over 1,000 clients. It's a pretty diverse background, which is cool. How do you see those different experiences around managing people, building community and working in terms of growth-oriented marketing? How did all of that kind of shape your human-centric approach, and especially in this sort of cold technical area, potentially of AI?
Yeah, I think that there is still major space for human connection. I think that's what I've seen throughout my journey. You need to be able to effectively market and stay in front of people digitally. There's no doubt about it. But people really connect the dots when they see a face and they hear a story that also relates to all the electronic touch points that they see. At Tulane, I felt like we would market to people really heavily, both print and digital. But then when I would visit schools and speak to folks at receptions, having a face and seeing the human side of things would really help people, again, connect the dots. And I saw that at Rasa, I saw that at Sidecar, and also obviously at the marketing company. So I think there's still this need for a story and for human connection to kind of bring it all together.
Yeah, I heard an interesting claim last week that the one thing that AI cannot do is build trust. And I agree, but I also disagree in a way, because AI can absolutely help build trust. For example, content personalization, right? And kind of helping build connections and foster connections between people.
Right.
Getting maybe into the movie Her at a certain point there between the AI and the person, but
Right.
I think it absolutely has that capacity to help bolster, human connection, which is exciting. So one of the other things, so When we chatted before, you mentioned that it's really a disservice for leaders not to educate their teams on AI.
Mhm.
Definitely a strong statement, and I agree. Why do you see AI literacy as such a core leadership imperative right now, and not just this sort of category of an IT problem or
Mhm.
security thing, those sort of other categories that don't really reach that C-suite?
Well, I think something we can all agree on is it's changing the world. Now, what exactly the world will look like in 5 or even 2 or 3 years, no one quite knows. I don't even think folks at the big AI companies know exactly what the world's going to look like. But think about how, when you're working for a certain organization, just kind of how typically focused you are on the day to day and your own world. And you are, to an extent, maybe isolated from other things going on, unless you are a very committed lifelong learner. If the leader at your organization doesn't mandate AI education, whenever you get out of that bubble at your current organization, you're going to be lost when it comes to the next step in your career. And it is a leader's absolute necessity. We often say it's leadership malpractice to not mandate AI education for your people, because they will be lost, whether it's when they go on to their next position, how employable they are, or whether it just completely turns everything upside down in their current position. You want them to be ready for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You may know this quote from Gini Rometty, too, who was the CEO of IBM.
Okay.
She said that AI will not replace humans, but those who use AI will replace those who don't.
Absolutely.
And I think that's absolutely the case. In terms of the nonprofit sector, there's only about a quarter, from what I've seen, that have a formal AI strategy right now.
Yeah, that
People are
might
using
even be
it,
a
right? They're
generous
using it
percentage.
personally. Yeah, you see some of the inside aspects of it too across a lot of
Mhm.
different organizations, which is super interesting. People are using it. It's just a matter of how do we elevate that use more strategically, right, to drive the organization's goals forward, have that proper governance, security, guidance, all of those sort of things that come with it. Definitely, yeah, an interesting imperative there, and that's what kind of led into this, sidecar focus on education and certifications there.
Mhm.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about kind of what does it look like on the inside of Sidecar, and how does that sort of rise of the AI certified professional affect the organizations that these people are coming out of with the certification, and impacting, and overall for the association workforce, right? What does that mean for the future of the industry?
Absolutely. So at Sidecar, we try to create resources so that we can meet folks wherever they are on their AI education journey. So, for example, we have free resources, the podcast, which is the Sidecar Sync, or a free newsletter, which is the Sidecar Scoop, in addition to frameworks and blogs that can be read on our website. And then we also, our core offering is our AI Learning Hub. And within the AI Learning Hub, you have the opportunity to complete coursework to get your AAIP, or Association AI Professional certification. And we think, because we hear from so many folks that they're ready to get started on their AI journey, but they don't quite know where to start, we're offering this incredible place to start, right? Education is a great place to get started before you create your AI roadmap or your strategic AI plan, or you go start building agents. You first need to learn what agents are and learn about the applicability of all of these tools that we hear so much about in the media. Where can they actually help associations? So that's what the AAIP is all about. A great place to get started, providing foundational knowledge. And then beyond that, it is a continuing program where we continue to put out new content to keep people up to date on what's changing. Because if you pay attention to this stuff at all, it changes literally every single day. And we want to offer a place for folks where they can get their core education, but then as updates happen, we're consistently putting out new content so that they can stay up to date and on top of it. And then beyond the foundational coursework, we also have a use case library of hundreds of different videos that people can watch so that they can actually see, well, how can I apply AI tools to conference planning and community management and my financial processes? So it's the certification program is something we're very, very proud of, because we think that it gives folks a great place to start, and it's an amazing kind of jumping off point to their futures.
Yeah, very cool resources there. We'll include some links to those as well for folks to start getting an understanding of some of those things. Definitely fascinating, and I've enjoyed some of that content myself as well.
Great.
I'd love to, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for putting it out there. I'd love to pull the curtain back a little bit in terms of, us as an organization. A lot of our listeners and viewers and readers are organizations that put out similar programs, right? Either they have certifications, they're looking at new educational content to produce, and you've created quite a wide library of that content.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly meeting the needs of professionals that are out there. Tell me a little bit about the strategy there. It looks like, kind of more at a ground level, how you put that content together, make sure you're meeting the needs of organizations, bringing an increase to their salaries and these sorts of things, but also more at a meta level. It seems like you're not just kind of creating a certification, you're really building almost a movement around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we think that's important because, to your point earlier, it does prove additional value. I mean, if someone can share that, hey, I have this AAIP certification, then they're, that much more employable. And it's a signal to future employers and their own organization that they're committed to lifelong learning and staying on top of this stuff. So when people get certified, we encourage them to put that in their LinkedIn profile and post about it and share that they've taken that leap and they're on their AI education journey. So that has definitely been part of the movement, is to use a term that you use that I think is really appropriate, because we want everyone to feel like this is something that I can be a part of too. I don't need to be left behind, and it's approachable, and then also something fun to share.
Awesome. So if you're looking at producing new content, do you have how does that kind of look? Do you have a roadmap to say, hey, for the next 6-12 months, here's the sort of content that we want to put out there? Are you more reactive, looking at what people are asking for, or job descriptions and things like that? How does that kind of pipeline work? You've mentioned a lot about setting up processes and things like that. I'm curious what's the process there that you guys have iterated on and found to really work?
That's a great question. So to answer your question about like what inspires us to create new content or what the topics of our content are, I'd say both. We're both looking to our community for feedback on what's needed. So for example, we not too long ago created an AI and accounting course. We also created an AI and ethics course. And that was inspired by both community feedback as well as what we saw a market need for. We also, just aside from more specialized topics, we want to educate folks on a regular basis in general. What's changed? So every 6 months, we're putting out an AI update core course. And completing that will be necessary to maintain someone's certification. And it's also it's a need. People want to make sure that they're up to date on the latest because it is changing so quickly. Along those lines, we created AI technology that allows us to update our core course content quickly with AI. So if, for example, let's say it's Gemini 2.5, and then it's Gemini 3, and then it's Gemini 47, we can easily kind of tweak that language and update the segments within the courses that are applicable to those tool updates.
Super interesting. Wow. And I think that sort of a content refresh is necessary across many industries. AI obviously is a very fast moving one, but even in, medicine and finance, insurance, things, regulations, processes, medicines change all the time. And I think it's important to keep content fresh. Absolutely. That's very cool. And so one more kind of process and strategy question around Sidecar itself and the parent family of companies, Blue Cypress. So associations and educational leaders, they often need to think through these different kind of strategic bets on new offerings, right? New educational formats, micro-credentials, new member benefits, things like that. I'd love to hear. So Sidecar is one of a few companies that Blue Cypress has come out with and been quite successful with in terms of offerings for associations. I'd love to hear how does the process work? What does the story look like in terms of validating a new need around something like AI education? and really meeting that need and growing that successfully, which
Mhm.
has definitely happened, and you definitely hit the mark with Sidecar over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Across the portfolio of companies, we have hundreds and hundreds of association clients. And what that allows us to do is really just keep a pulse on the evolving needs of the industry because we hear things from all angles. It's not like we're just AI education. We have SaaS solutions, we have consultancies, we have services companies. So we get a lot of feedback, and our mission is to help these organizations be as, powerful and influential as they can because they have these amazing communities. They're the unbiased sources of truth in their various industries. So they are just so well positioned for help people and to help their greater communities. And so we want to help them do that with AI tooling and with, creating solutions that meet certain needs. So we listen, we do a lot of listening, and we do a lot of testing, and we do a ton of experimentation. And then kind of once things seem to really have a product market fit, we bring them to market. And we've seen, to your point, a lot of success in recent company launches. So in the case, like for example, in the case of Rasa's been around for many years, but there was a need that we saw in terms of people were getting too many emails. Members were getting too many emails, and they weren't getting the right email. And so we really heard that feedback, and that's how Rasa was born. So just as one example.
Really interesting, and to come and visit your booth or your series of booths at the ASAE conference in LA was it was intriguing to see how there was a whole circle of different companies on different sides of it, and talking
Yeah.
with Betty folks, for example, very interesting
Yeah, that's where
kind of
we
new
met
products that are
at those
yeah,
at those
clearly
booths.
it's a yeah, it works. And it's cool. I'm sure there have been other, failed experiments that, you can quickly iterate on and say, oh, that's not working, but let's double down on those things that are.
Hmm. Hmm.
We've done, very similar sorts of things internally, basically
Great.
being data driven and customer driven, right? Like, how can we meet the most important needs for our customers, and coming at it with um, instead of a sort of selling first approach or inside out type of thinking, outside in, really learning first, hearing the needs of
Hmm.
other associations or customers or members or whatever it is, and then really building against that need.
Yeah. And
It
helping
works,
people.
and it creates really successful programs.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
never I've never sold anything that I didn't 100% believe could help people. That's why I've never considered myself a salesperson, because I've always just kind of seen the organizations and products I've connected myself with is like really meeting a need and making people better in the end. Even though technically I am in sales to an extent, I never really saw it that way because it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Same. It's when I get to help people, and so, sometimes what we do is not even the right fit for them in terms of our sort of business solutions around continuing education management. I'm always glad to point people, and sometimes I say, hey, here's 3 different things that are out there that we've interacted with and seen. Here's some options for you if you want to talk it through. I'm
Yeah.
glad to be helpful for you.
Right.
I absolutely love that. And so, in terms of kind of coming back to the leadership and around the human barrier to AI,
Hmm.
a lot of folks are facing teams, who are skeptical, or even scared of AI in certain cases, especially in a business context. A lot of news articles that I'm seeing around. It turns out if you are using the new Perplexity Comet browser, then it's stealing all your data and things like this. Where you have a topic called "From Fear to Fluency." So for a leader with a nervous team, or even a leader who is nervous themselves, what is that kind of first conversation or set of conversations that they need to have to start really building that psychological safety essentially around AI,
Hmm.
and making sure you can get proactive addressing those concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think going back to something we were just talking about, coming at it from a place of being helpful. People are scared. I mean, if you're hearing everything in the media about this force that's going to potentially take your job one day, There's no there's no like not understanding why that's scary to people. I mean, it's really obvious. And so if someone is a trusted leader in your organization, you need to start the conversation, I think, with education and understanding the foundations and helping people know that they have to understand the foundations of this technology so that it is demystified. I think that's a great place to start. As leaders, it's your job to demystify and make things practical. So encourage folks on your teams to maybe take an inventory of their time and figure out where are they spending time on the tedious tasks, the rote tasks, the things that don't bring them joy and they can't be really creative and strategic about. Those are going to be the things that AI can really help with. And if you approach it from a standpoint of, hey, Bob, the tedious filing that you have to do for 3 hours every day, we can figure out a way to have an agent help you with that. And maybe that is a little bit more approachable than like your whole job just goes away, right? So like breaking it down into pieces. And once you have that inventory of your time, figuring out where the AI can help and having employees have a voice in that process too. I think that once people have a seat at the table, their entire perspective changes. I know that's true for me. Once I feel like I have this control of my own destiny, that makes me operate differently. So involve people in your decision making, involve people in the kind of direction you take when it comes to automation and AI scaling. And I think that'll make a difference too.
Yeah, that's great. I think that communication piece is really the core, and it can come from the way you talk about integrating AI internally, the policies and guidelines you give internally to the team, enabling them and supporting them to get educated on and certified in AI, those sorts of things, and even very one-on-one, right? Another leadership malpractice is not having one-on-one time and not having individuals sort of coaching for your folks, right?
Right.
And so as a leader, being really clear about, hey, and showing examples of, hey, here's some areas, that are super administrative for you that I think we can have AI help with.
Right.
Right. If we, just like good process, right? If we have a checklist for something, totally before AI, if we have a good checklist, it allows that person to focus their most creative efforts on those elements instead of figuring out, oh, wait, what do I need to do next? And try to navigate that. Because there's a checklist, it's more freeing than it is binding. And I think AI is absolutely the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's really well
Very
said.
cool.
I love a good process checklist, a good SOP.
Absolutely. And yeah, I love there's a Morgan Stanley example I saw as well. They have, 16,000 different advisors, and they armed them with an AI trained on their 100,000 internal reports. They didn't replace those advisors, they simply gave them superpowers. And I think that whole narrative around, well, AI is actually going to help give you superpowers and do your job, plus, enable you to learn new things and do new aspects and become a double or triple threat in terms of your role internally.
Right.
That's a great narrative to get the right people excited about that.
And I think there's just such a huge opportunity to be the AI expert at your organization, right? Just beyond foundational education. If you decide to be the one that is always up to date on the latest news and technology and tooling, you're going to propel your career forward. People are going to look to you for advice. And that's really powerful for your own personal professional journey.
Yeah, that's really good. Be that person internally that others can go to, and yeah, be the resource. I love that. Sort of as part of that and related to communication, especially. So I think you have a pretty unique perspective coming from Rasa as well, really selling this AI concept before the market was ready.
Right.
What, or maybe as it was getting ready, what did that experience really teach you about communicating around change and getting buy-in for new ideas, even when people aren't necessarily asking for them?
That's such a great question and really brings me back to my early days at Rasa in the Blue Cypress family, when we did initially go to market with like AI for email and like personalized AI powered email newsletters. And we quickly found out that people were just not ready to embrace AI. It not only was something they just didn't understand yet, it was almost a deterrent more than it was something that attracted folks. So we did scale back for years the use of the term AI and artificial intelligence in our marketing. We eventually brought it back because we were using machine learning and behavior recognition and pattern recognition in order to deliver the most relevant news to folks, because it eventually became something that, was exciting and cool. But in the beginning, it certainly wasn't. And when you met with folks, it was such a black box and so mystified that it was something people couldn't really get beyond, even though at that point, AI was already built into our phones and all of the, devices we interact with on a day-to-day in our homes. People just weren't ready to and let it in, knowingly, at least.
Yeah, knowingly let it in. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I have a friend that started an AI company several years ago as well, and whenever he'd go to conferences, people would go up and it would be AI powered, blank, and people would go up and they'd say, "Who's Al?" Like, and why
Al
is
did
he
this?
powering
That's
all this
great.
stuff?
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's wild. And it reminds me of a story too, where in terms of the personalization aspect, where a big department store, I think it was Target, saw something around search history, and then started emailing and sent a letter to somebody with suggested products. That's all the suggested I think you know this, right? All the suggested products were baby, things.
Yep.
And then this was sent to the home where she was living with her parents. And her parents looked
Mhm.
at it like, wait, what, what's going on here?
Right. And they got upset with
And it's
Target.
just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Target. Yeah. And so it was just based on a couple searches that she had. Target knew before her parents knew that she was pregnant, or,
Right. Right.
it's just wild. And then they had to scale that back. Obviously, they're highly, highly personalized in terms of the recommendations they're giving and
Mhm.
things like that. But it's sort of a cautionary tale to do it the right way.
The right way. Right. And with people's consent on which data you use about them,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
which
Exactly.
is, hard. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what everyone chooses, not what every organization chooses to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I want to shift a little bit into kind of the practical playbook. Let's say, I'm a leader. I'm totally on board. And I've had the talk, with my team around, hey, we're going to be using AI now pretty heavily. Here's our general strategy. Now what, right? Like, how do we kind of advocate for low lift wins?
Mhm.
What are some of these kind of low cost AI quick wins that associations can get into and educational leaders can get into in the next 30 days or so?
Yeah, I think it is all about quick wins, to your point. A lot of times people think AI journey and they think we need to boil the ocean and every single technology system of ours needs to be AI first, AI enabled. And the reality of the situation is that if that's the path you go down, you're going to be completely stifled because it's going to be overwhelming and it's just going to be too much. So I think there is something to say about AI pilots. They're a company in the portfolio called Betty, and it takes an entire ecosystem of an association's data and learns on it, and members can interact with it in order to get the right answers. Well, that's something that can easily be installed on your existing website, and you already have the data that's needed to train it, and it's not a full systems overhaul. So, and same with Rasa. Rasa, we can get started with a list of names and emails, and that's pretty much all we need. And so it's all about proving the quick wins, experimenting in a controlled way, and figuring out, where are there time efficiencies to be gained and where are there revenue opportunities. I mean, I think about all the time, there's so many vendors that want to be in front of an association's community, right? Any given association. But at times, the associations don't have enough people on staff to create the assets to monetize, like maybe, putting together a webinar, like new web and landing pages and different, graphics or, social media pushes. Like that took so much more time before. And now that stuff can be whipped up in a matter of minutes. So think about ways that you can monetize your various assets that you didn't approach before. I mean, there are just so many again, little projects that can make a big, big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. The sort of quick win snowball effect, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting with quick things that will build some momentum and
Hmm.
help you take on the bigger business problems.
Right. And then when it does
And
come time to choose a new database system, like system of record, you can say, well, this particular system of record is fully AI enabled, and look at all these other wins we've had. And it's a much better case to make to your board or whoever the powers are that be.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Prove the use case in different scenarios and then go big.
Hmm.
I like that. So one of the absolute top, association pain points is member value, right?
Hmm.
I think you have this deep experience in terms of personalization at scale beyond personalizing newsletter content, which Rasa is great at. How can AI and also the kind of Betty side of
Hmm.
personalizing, chat and resource access? How do you see AI being able to practically kind of help, a very small team with limited resources create more of those kind of one-on-one member experiences and boost that experience, boost that value that they can give and really drive engagement at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think personalized member experiences are going to be so powerful for that. We recently had our Digital Now conference in Chicago. It was just a week ago. It feels like that just kind of time flies. But one of our speakers was Thad Lurie from American Geophysical Union, and he did an AI project whereby he ingested every single abstract, across everything that his members have ever submitted and ingested all of the member data. And I'm going to do my best to represent this project, but it was so cool. So he was able to connect members with each other based on like very niche areas of research. So, like if I was someone in North America studying like a very specific type of mineral found in a very specific type of soil, but there was a team in Russia that was doing the same and I had never even heard of them, he was able to kind of create those connections between people and enhance engagement to, just like by a crazy multiple because people all of a sudden got to be connected with peers who they didn't even know existed studying like really specific things. They did something similar to connect folks at a conference just by using AI to match people in a really thoughtful way.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'll have to find that case study if I can and include it in some of the show notes.
He is so excited to talk to
That's
people about it too. He always says, reach out. I'm happy to chat with folks.
wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I may pull him next. That's awesome. So a couple kind of closing questions in terms of where things are going and what folks should be taking away. So you've talked about this shift from AI that generates content and kind of the interactive chat to AI agents that execute tasks. I'd love if you can paint a picture for us. Let's say in 2027 or 2028, how does a professional development or membership director or association executives day look fundamentally different from the way it looks today?
Well, that's such a great question. Well, I'm going to start with the marketing category because that's one I'm very familiar with. So we think about posting to different mediums, meeting people where they are. So you want to like have your social stuff going on and your paid ads and your email and your website and lots of blog content and podcast content. And at Sidecar, we've created, just thousands and thousands of pieces of content over the years. And what typically happens is we push out what's been recently created, which is great and makes a lot of sense. That's what most organizations do. But I think about a future where, this kind of goes a little bit to the AGU example, but like our entire ecosystem of content is sent to, or whatever given piece of content from our entire ecosystem is sent to the right person via the right medium at the right time. And that spurs engagement with our organization. So you had mentioned a piece of content that I hadn't thought about in a very long time. Like, what was it called? It was from like curiosity to, I can't remember what it was, but like, what if the AI will know? Yeah.
These interviews are a blur for me.
Yeah. The AI will know that would be the right thing to send to Kyle via email November 12th, right? So there's just going to be so much more sophistication, personalization at such a deeper scale. And that's going to all happen with me supervising an agent as opposed to doing all the work itself. And then these agents are going to interact with each other. So the marketing agent's going to be able to talk to the sales agent and understand if maybe Kyle's already a lead in our system and we don't need to send him nurture content. We need to send him content about following up after a recent sales meeting. I mean, it's just going to be a completely new level. And what I've heard in podcasts before, and the stuff that I read is the future, like many future organizations that are like very AI enabled and AI first might just have three roles, like the salesperson, the operator, and like the product person. And they're all just kind of supervising a world of agents.
Yeah. So, 100,000 member associations may be run by three people, who knows? But I think each person's role, whether the organizations grow and stay the same in terms of their number of employees, I think each person's role will be expected to expand with AI powered capabilities to be able to oversee more than just that kind of one singular role that they have. Traditional T-shaped person where they have some knowledge in many different areas and then a lot of depth in one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll become more like an M or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
similar to that. They develop that depth, kind of AI powered depth in different skills.
Absolutely. There's also
Very
a case
cool.
to be made, because of the way the world's going to be this like really hyper powered generalist and go, just so that you can understand systems and have a deep systems intelligence. So you can understand how all the functions in an organization work together because of the way the world's moving.
Yeah, that's great. Similar to the way that we've seen, medicine moving in some ways, where being very good at a certain thing was traditionally the main strength, and it still is. But there's a lot of resources in AI, to look up symptoms and things like this, where the core basic skills in terms of understanding, biology and how systems work, and especially how to communicate with people, right? And the patient engagement and bedside manner and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come shift to a lot of those skills around critical thinking. How do you work with people?
Yeah.
And how do you kind of look at what you're given and modify that in a productive way? Those sort of foundational, maybe even soft skills might become
So
a reemerging
absolutely
need.
There will be, I think, a renewed sense of demand for in-person experiences.
Absolutely, yeah. So as a closing sort of call to action, who have given advice I've seen as a first step to find a trusted resource. I think that's really strong to kind of get started in terms of AI. Let's say a listener here is ready to truly act, and take some next steps. What is one tangible thing that they should do today to start building their personal and their team's AI playbook?
I mean, obviously, I think Sidecar is a great place to start for AI education. Beyond that, resources I use, I listen to the Google DeepMind podcast. I listen to the Artificial Intelligence show put on by the folks at the Marketing AI Institute. Tech Brew is like a really good offshoot of the Morning Brew newsletter. What I'd say is just spend like 15 minutes a day and you'll be ahead of most people. I think there are also like two ways to spend your time once you have somewhat of a foundational understanding and you have figured out a path for continued learning. Also spend your time just experimenting and playing with the tools. Like I think a lot of the value that I bring organizations is I can say, hands-on, based on hands-on experience of my own, like this tool's great, this one needs a little work, this one's like just in its infancy, maybe will get a lot better. I have that firsthand knowledge, and I think that becomes incredibly valuable too.
That's great. Thanks so much, Erica. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, check the show notes if you're listening to see some follow-up resources from Erica. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle.